I know I looked into doing PT hours at the, or shadowing hours at the hospital, and you have to have like a base minimum of 50 hours at the hospital before you can specialize.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's something you might want to keep in mind.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think certain channels require you to volunteer for 50 hours first, then before they kind of put you in line to see a PT. But
Yeah.
if there's a contact that you can get through directly, where you could go around that, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that people have done that. So.
And that would be a great question for Glenn Newman. So if you just wanted to email him, because he would have the answers to that. But that's a good point. I wasn't aware of that.
I was actually not thinking of going straight through.
Yeah.
I was thinking about graduating in December of my intended year
Mhm.
and then possibly going and shadowing or working, but you said that you have to have a 2-year degree to like actually work as a PTA.
Yes, to work as a PTA, you do have to do a 2-year program, but you don't necessarily have to work as a PT assistant. If you wanted to get more experience and more time, you could work as a physical therapy tech. You don't have to have any special degree for that. You don't do quite as much with the patients as a PT assistant. You really, you're going to be helping out a lot. And that's what I was considered when I was doing my shadowing time. I was doing like tech work, all right? So in outpatient, I was kind of, helping out, guiding some patients through exercises, but I was helping do with laundry and stuff like that. In the hospital, if you wanted to do any kind of tech work in acute care, you're going to be working with the patient. Because a lot of our patients are really, really sick and really deconditioned, so I work with patients that it takes 2 of us to get them into standing. Our PT tech would be that second person, and they help out get equipment and manage lines. One of the techs that I work with is a whiz at managing tubes, lines, and drains. She's just back and forth across the room, and she's a blur, and I'm jealous of how good she is at managing these lines. So that's a good opportunity too, and that is something that you could do full-time. You can work part-time as a tech. Again, they do that in pretty much any setting. You could do that in inpatient rehab. They work with techs there as well.
Okay, because I was actually gonna do that for after I graduated, just do that up until the time that I would apply. You said that ECU's PT program, you have to apply in the spring, you start in spring.
The program itself starts in May,
Mhm.
and then when I applied, you have and then all of the deadlines for application are going to be on the ECU PT website. That's also going to vary from school to school because
Okay.
Winston-Salem State doesn't start in May. I think that they start in August. Yeah, it'll have everything that you're required to do on the website. But I did apply in the spring. You put in your application, you do an interview at X date and time, and then you find out yes or no, and then you start, a month or 2 later.
Looking back at it, would you recommend taking a year off and doing a lab tech type thing, or would you recommend going straight into it?
That's a very good question. There were a lot of people in my class that had taken a year, several years off. We had a couple people who were career changes. For me personally, I know again this is completely personal preference. I'm glad that I did it the way that I did. And my reasoning behind that is because I knew that if I decided to take a year off, it was going to turn into 2 years or 3 years, or maybe I'll just do this, or so that worked out very well for me. But on the other side of that is if you do go and you start working and you have all this experience, then you could be a little more likely to get accepted into the program because you have so much more experience. So instead of having 100 hours, you have 2,000 hours. Well, that's going to look pretty good on an application.
Sometimes people are figuring out, that they want to do PT or different, health or medical programs later in school. I mean, so, a lot of times I see someone who's a junior or a senior who decides they want to go to this type of program. And so it's pretty much going to be mandated if they don't already have all the prerequisites and things like that that they're gonna be, you know, taking some extra time to do everything. So, I mean, it is very common, and I would say the average person probably has a year in between. I know that the average age for people in the program is not to be able to go straight through. You would probably be in the minority, right?
Yeah, most of the people in my class were a couple years older than me. The oldest person we had in class again was a career change, and he is in his 40s. We had one person, because they have like I don't know if they still do this, like the advanced program where you do 3 years of undergrad and then go straight into PT school, and the last year counts as like your classes, which I wouldn't recommend. We had one person in our class that did that accelerated program, but yeah, most people in my class had some time off before coming into school.
So yeah, it's really hard to go straight through, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I graduated and then days later I started grad school. And it is, I'm not going to say it's easy, it is tough. It kicked my butt to start out with because, you know, when I was an undergrad, I kind of made good grades. You know, I didn't really know how to study very well just because some things kind of were a little bit easier, except chemistry. I'm not going to talk about chemistry. But then I started grad school and it's a whole different world. So not to scare you out of it, but for me it was a big reality check. So you had to learn how to study because not many people are going to breeze through. And then it's not because it's difficult, it's because there's just so much information. So if you get behind and you don't study, then you're going to be in trouble around test time. At ECU, they do have an attendance policy, and then they do have a minimum GPA. Like if you get a C in a class, then you're probably going to be meeting with a professor. They're going to tell you to kick it in gear. So A's and B's in PT school. It was great. It was a great program.
What was the transition from PT school to your job now? What was that like?
So I graduated in May of 2011, and at that time you could take because you have to take the board exam. All right. So my credentials are it's Hillary Bauer, PT, which is my licensure, DPT, which is my degree. All right. So you have to take the licensure exam before you can practice. So after I graduated, I studied, and I had been studying, like, the licensure exam is something you study for months. You do, like, prep courses for this exam. It's a very expensive exam, and you don't want to have to pay for it again. And it's cumulative for 3 years of information. And so I studied a lot. I took my exam near the beginning of June, and then I started my job because I passed. My class had a 100% pass rate, which is very good. And then I started work on June 20th. ECU's program actually has a fantastic pass rate. I think out of, I want to say 5 or 6 years, there's only been one class that did not have a 100% pass rate on the exam, and that's big bragging rights. There are schools that cost a lot more money than ECU that can't say that. We have excellent, fantastic professors. I have to say, one of the things that I love the most about grad school is that the professors are there for your success, because it doesn't look very good if 30 people go into the program and 25 people graduate. That doesn't make the program look very good. But it's not even about that. It's that they really want you to succeed. Whereas chemistry 101, the professor's here for their research and they teach, and it's like whatever. But in grad school it was completely different. I feel like I'm like bashing their undergrad. I'm sorry, but that was just my opinion. But it was a great experience. It was very, very hard, like I said, but I would do it over again in a heartbeat. Listen to me. I'm so cardiopulmonary in a heart rate. So you guys have some great questions. You guys have any other questions?
Yeah. What kind of work do you put your students, like you say you make your students work? Because I just recently started volunteering at the outpatient, and I found myself just watching a lot and not doing as much as I wanted or anticipated I would be doing. So what kind of things do you have your students do?
My students are training, so these are students that are already in physical therapists. So I'm training the student to become a physical therapist. So my student is doing full evaluations. She's doing evaluations by herself. I'm close by, so she is learning how to do everything that I do on a daily basis.
Okay.
So it's definitely a little more intense. You would be able to compare it to volunteer work versus an internship. So volunteering,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's the same thing. Yeah, it's a question.
Well, you said she's a PT student, so for us being undergrad students, like not really in a program or anything, we couldn't be doing evaluations, so would we still be like looking and so?
If you came and you wanted to volunteer as an undergrad to work with me, you would be in the room with me. I would let you have hands-on experience helping with a patient. So you wouldn't be doing evaluations, but I would be pointing out different things to you. I'd be like, oh, look, all right, the patient has weakness in this muscle. I want you to watch how they're walking. Or this patient needs 2 people to stand up. I want you to get on the other side and grab the gait belt. Or, I want you to help manage these lines. So I put my students to work.
So it can be a little bit more interactive and hands-on for students that are shadowing, not just, say, casually observing.
It can be, absolutely. Now, to start out with, on your first day, I probably wouldn't have you, doing all that stuff. You do a lot of shadowing first, just to kind of get an idea of what kind of responsibilities you would have, So I don't just throw you in there and be like, okay, have fun. No. Yeah, you guys have great questions. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you guys very much. I greatly enjoyed this. I'll hang out for a few minutes if you do have any more questions. I can give you my email address. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Hillary.Bauer, like Jack Bauer, at VitantHealth.com. Thank you.